Now let's go ahead and practice writing an equation from a graph. So this time we're given the graph and we have to identify both the slope and the y-intercept in order to be able to write the equation in slope-intercept form. Remember, the form is y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. Okay, I will first show you the traditional way of writing this, and then I will do a few examples of a way I think is a little bit more intuitive and easier to write. So let's go ahead and start with the form y equals mx plus b. Now, I don't expect you to type that every time, but just to show that we are replacing m and replacing b, we'll start this example this way. So now, what is the slope of this line? This line, first of all, is going downward from left to right. So right away, that tells you the slope has to be a negative value. So this is going to be a negative m. Now, let's go ahead and find this slope. So let's start with any 2 points on this line. I would just recommend start with the y-intercept and from there move to the right to the next coordinate right over here. So we need to go from here to here. To get from this point to this point, first we need the rise. In other words, go up or down. So in this case, because it's negative, we are going down. We go down 1 unit. That's 1 box. And then from there, we move 1, 2, 3 to the right. So we will write this as the m1 over 3. So negative 1, meaning we went down 1, and then over 3 to the right 3. Now for this example, the units or the increments here are increasing by 1, so we are good with this value. The y-intercept is the number where the line crosses the y-axis, so that is negative 6. So this plus b has to turn into a minus 6. Okay, submit. Now, let's go ahead and try another. This time, I will not type the whole equation, just start with y equals. And what is the slope here? If we go from this point, the y-intercept, all the way down to this other coordinate, we would have to go down 1. Again, this is a negative slope because it's going downward. So we go down 1, that is negative 1, over. And we need to run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 units. So that is negative 1 over 8, x. Now go ahead and find the y-intercept. This is crossing right in between negative 8 and negative 10. Therefore, that is negative 9. So type minus 9. Here's the equation of this line in slope-intercept form. Okay, now let's try this a different way. Y equals, I'm going to start with the y-intercept because I think that's a little bit more intuitive. And you'll see once we get into the real world applications of these problems, it'll make far more sense. Now let's start with the y-intercept, which in this case is negative 1. So negative 1, I'm just reversing the order, starting with the b. And then from here, we're rising, so going up 1 unit and running 1, 2 to get to the next coordinate. So the rise is 1 over 2. So from here, we're increasing because it's a positive, so 1 over 2x. Again, if you do like this method, starting with the y-intercept, then your slope, you can do that, or continue with the traditional method of starting with the slope, followed by the y-intercept. I'll do another in this manner. So let's go with the y-intercept, which is negative 8. So we will start with y equals negative 8. And from there, the slope is increasing. So we will add. How much are we adding here? Let's count. From here, we are going all the way to this coordinate here. Okay, so let's go ahead and start counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 units up over 1. So you can type 7 over 1. However, this does have to be in simplest form. So 7 over 1 or 7 divided by 1 is simply 7. You must type this as just 7 because it does need to be in simplest form. Otherwise, you will have to do some more practice problems. And now go ahead and type your x because that's the slope. Now, some of these problems will get a little bit trickier in that the increments do not increase only by 1. So let's go ahead and do a few more until we get to some of those problems with bigger increments. Actually, let's just skip forward now. Okay, here we go. So now, notice the increments here are increasing by 10. From here to here, that is 10, and then it goes to 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. So now we're not just counting boxes. You actually have to go by the values. So let me show you how to do this. Let's start with y equals. I will start this one with the y-intercept. The y-intercept is negative 10 because it's 1 unit below the 0. So we start at negative 10, and from there we are increasing, going upwards. So we are adding. How much are we increasing? We are going up 1 box, over 1 box. But remember, count that by the actual values. We go up 10 over 10. Now, notice I could start by typing 10 over 10, but I do have to reduce that. 10 over 10, or 10 divided by 10 in this case, is 1. So we could type 1x, and I think this should take the answer correctly. And I'll try it just to make sure it does. But anytime you end up with the 1 as a slope, you could simply leave it as just x. Let's again submit it as a 1. It should mark it correctly because it is. Okay, now notice these increments got a lot bigger. Now each increment is going up by 100. Okay, let's try this. Shouldn't be too bad. Y is equal to, let's start with the y-intercept again, negative 300. Negative 300. And from there we are increasing. That's a positive slope. And the increments go up. We go up 100 units and then move 1 box to the right, which is another 100 units. So 100 over 100, that could be divided. So 100 divided by 100 is 1, so 1x. Or again, you can just not put the 1 because that is implied when you type plus x and submit. Okay, well, let's try another one of these. I'm trying to get to one that does not have this slope of 1. So let's quickly do this one. Y equals, and just to switch it up, I'll go back to the traditional method really quick. The slope goes up 1 over 1 unit, but these increments are increasing by 100. So that's 100 over 100, or just 1 x, which you can leave the 1 or not write it. And now the y-intercept is a negative value. That is negative 900, so minus 900. Well, just 900. Now go ahead and submit that. And, well, you might get some of these again that do have different slopes. They simplify to different values other than 1. So just keep in mind, always reduce the slope value as much as possible. Otherwise, you will end up having to do a few extra problems. All right, this should get you through this topic. Remember to help each other out if you do get stuck.